guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be going over a new game called Warhammer Total War. And today we are playing as the faction of the Empire. Now today's video is going to be about a beginner's guide to the game. It's one of my favorite games, and something that I did struggle with was whenever I first started out, there is a very steep learning curve, I thought. And I have watched videos from other people before, and I love watching them, I still do, but it is hard to follow along, especially when you're new to everything and don't understand a lot of the mechanics and things, so we are going to be going over that today. Now, first we are going to start out with growth. And what that is in each province you have, and all of these settlements around here are in one province. You can see how many are in a province by clicking on a building in that province, and it'll show you 1, 2, 3, 4. All of these are in this one province. If I click out of that to this, then it will show me different ones, and this is all in another province, all in one. Now, when you have control of an entire province, all of that meaning you own every single building in that province, you can set a commandment. And what these do is they give you certain buffs. As long as you own the territory, that entire province, then basically free buff to pick whatever you want to do, such as recruitment cost. So if you're recruiting armies, it decreases how much you have to pay for them. This is really nice, especially early on, because you will need to build up an army pretty fast. And then there's growth, and we're about to get into what that does, and we're probably going to go with this one because it will increase growth for our buildings, and as well as construction cost reduction for all of our buildings that we're going to build later on. Income from all buildings, it is nice, but it's not nearly as good in my opinion as the other commandments, so we're not going to go with that one. Corruption reduction is really good for, especially if you're against the demons of chaos, because the demonic factions in this game can spread what is called corruption onto your provinces, or where they live at is naturally corrupted. And it has a lot of boons for them, but it is nothing but awful to deal with as an order player, such as the Empire, Kislev, or the Elves. Those types of factions are considered the order faction. That is really bad for us. Right, and then this one, control increase, and income from trade tariffs. Get into that as well later on. The control here, get into that. Alright, so first we are going to start with growth and what that does. Right under here, whenever you press on your province, your buildings in your province, you're going to see growth here. Now, it's at 2 currently. This is population surplus. Growth is how much you get in a turn. So the green is what we already have, the yellow is what we are going to have next turn. Now, what growth does is, once an entire cycle of the growth is completed, it gives us a population surplus. And you need population surplus for your main buildings. Reason being, to get a higher level capital city, capital building, you need growth increase. And the reason that we need the growth for our capital building instead of just upgrading all of our other buildings that do not require growth, all these, they require money, they do not require growth, except for the main building in that settlement. This requires growth, even if it's not the capital. These are the main buildings in that settlement. Each city around here is a settlement. These are the capitals, and they require growth to upgrade. Now, the reason being that we don't just upgrade everything at the bottom tier and, get all of it up, because it boosts our money or boosts our growth, is because to get the higher tier units, which I can show you in the building browser, to get the higher tier units, for instance, the Great Swordsman, or Great Swords, you need a level 3 capital. We cannot build this building, barracks level 3, without a level 3 capital. It will not let us do that. And that goes the same for any of the other ones, such as the Demigryph Knights, or the, forgot how to pronounce that, the Hellstorm Rocket Battery, or especially late in the game, the Steam Tank. All of these are ridiculously good and overpowered, great units. But we will not be able to get them unless we can upgrade our capital to match the level of them. So it is important to upgrade your capital. And so that is where growth comes in. Without growth, we will not be able to expand later on. So that is... Oh, and there are a lot of things you can do to increase growth. Like I said earlier, the commandments with the increased growth. There it is. That is one way that you can increase growth. So each turn, it is going to increase growth by, I think it was 20. It's down here now. Increase growth by 20. And it also has the added bonus of reducing construction for buildings, which is really, really nice. So that's one way. Another way is through the technology tree, and we'll get into technology in a little bit too. But that is the growth and what you need to know about it. Right? Now, getting on to the second topic, we are going to be talking about the economy. As you can see the economy up here, that is basically our treasure or our money. And different factions will call it different things, like the undead have it as like dark magic or souls, and then the demons have it as like souls. I'm sure of that. Fairly certain the demons have it as souls up there. Different factions will have it as a different name, but it's just currency. It is a form of currency at the very top. And there are a lot of buildings that can increase your gold. Go to the building browser, such as right here, the clay pit. It increases income by 100. It's good. You need income for a lot of things. Building, upgrading any building, including your capital. Your capital needs both money and growth. So growth is important. Money is also very important because you need it to recruit soldiers, and you also need it to keep your soldiers.
Bring me to my men.
And because if you do not keep your soldiers, then you will have deserters, and all these units will slowly disappear. After about 10 or so turns, all of this will be gone. All the units you've already bought, so try not to stretch yourself too thin. Always trying to be in the plus economy. I mean, you don't want to just stockpile your gold and not use it, because that's not any better. But what you do not want to do is put yourself too thin, because your armies will disappear, and it means you're expanding too quickly. Especially with the Empire, you can take things relatively slow, in my opinion, compared to other factions like the Demons, the Beastmen, factions like those. Most Order factions, you have a slow build-up versus the other ones that focus on rapid expansion. Now, on to the next topic. We are going to be talking about faction effects. Different factions are going to have different effects. For instance, the Orcs have the Wa. And what that does is, after a certain amount of victories, they can call the Wa.
The Elector Count.
And that would mean, if we were an Orc faction, it would double all of our entire army free of cost for a certain duration. And we could use it to attack a certain faction. For instance, if we wanted to attack these guys as a Dwarf faction, or Old Dwarf faction, Greenskin faction, then we could, and we could double our army size for the sake of that cause. It's a very, very busted ability. I really like it. Works. And then we are going to go ahead and, for instance, the Empire's faction effects is the Elector Counts. You can see here, this is the map of the Empire. Our goal is to keep the Empire whole or within the influence of our Elector Counts. Right here you'll see the chains around this one. This is Festus. He is not one of our Elector Counts. He is a demon, and he has taken over this province. As well as Vlad here, we are going to need to deal with him later. And whenever another enemy faction takes over one of your provinces within the sphere of influence of the Empire, it hurts your prestige. Get into prestige as well, but it is kind of like another currency for the Empire. It can do a lot of things, and this, such as sending aid, spawn degrading army for target Empire faction at target region. So if one of our city-states, states of our Empire, was under attack, we could send a free army, only costing prestige. That being said, as an Empire player, and something I've noticed lately, is you will need prestige. Special events will pop up, and you may want to save some of that prestige, because it definitely comes in handy getting out of bad, situations. For instance, losing influence with one in exchange for another. It's just better to have a little bit of prestige saved up, unless it's you're in a very bad situation. Now, There are different buffs you can do, all costing prestige, and you get a certain number of prestige every turn. It covers around here. Now, the more empire city-states that we lose, the less prestige we get, and the more it goes into this red here. And so it brings negative things with it, such as negative control, negative growth, negative income. All of these things hurt our economies a lot. Not just our economy, our faction. So, always try and keep most of the empire under your control to the best of your ability. It's always best to have it all under control, but you're not going to get that as soon as you spawn in. It is going to take a little bit of time. So, there is the faction effects. Now, we are going on to heroes. Heroes are different from your legendary lord. Lords and heroes are different. The main difference is your units cannot leave your army. They can't by themselves. They are not able to leave the army. They have to stay in a lord's army, and they are not able to leave it by themselves. Your lords, on the other hand, or your heroes rather, can leave the army on their own. They can either scout around different places, or they can even, for instance, if I wanted to, assassinate units or assault units, wound, and then there's certain ones that can't assassinate them. So if I sent him here and he had the assassination ability, he would be able to kill this hero of this enemy faction. Now, they each have different things, but almost all, or rather all of them have another thing with them, such as where's it at? There it is. Right here, whenever you hover over it, it'll show right here, constant local effects. They all have something similar to this, and this one is boost income. And so just by staying in this province, though it's barely in right here, right at this line is the cutoff between my province and theirs. As long as he is a toe into my province, it boosts our local income, all of my cities in this province, by 5%. 5 whole percent for everything here just by having him in your province. So heroes are really good in that way as well. They are hard to get though. In comparison to like normal units, heroes are much harder to get. You cannot spam recruit heroes, unfortunately. That would be very busted if you could, but we cannot do that. So you can send them a long way away to scout around or assault, steal technology. Stealing technology, if you used it against a enemy settlement with your hero, would allow your technology to increase, which is really, really nice as well. Speeds up the research rate. Alright, now on to stances. In your lord's army, they have something right below them, and that is the stance. No stance is the default, and it doesn't do anything. Channeling stance, it consumes 10 movement range when entering the stance, and then the Winds of Magic power reserve is plus 15 per turn. The Winds of Magic you can see right here, and that is used by the spellcasters or the abilities by your lords. So it is good to have a lot of Winds of Magic. Not the most important thing, but Winds of Magic definitely helps out, especially if you have a spellcaster in your army like our Gold Wizard. Now on to the next one. Stance in camp. It consumes 50 movement range when entering the stance, but it does enable replenishment and access to the global recruitment pool. It's immune to most attrition, but campaign movement is disabled when recruiting, so I really wouldn't do this if you're surrounded by enemy armies, because that is not going to help you. It also increases ambush defense chance, which is really good, and we'll get into what an ambush stance is later. Now, raiding. The stance of raiding, when you enter this in an enemy territory, is you steal their income, you lower their control, their growth. Basically, you're a parasite in their territory. They do not like you for this, so do not do this to allied nations, because they will declare war on you. And then there is the stance of ambush. It's 25% movement range when entering this stance, and you are hidden until battle is initiated. Now, whenever you click on this, I'll show you guys, right above your character, it will show you the percent chance of you being able to ambush an enemy army. 45% chance is not a high increase, like it's not very good, so more than likely they will be able to see through it, and we will not get the ambush success chance. Now, there's March Stance. March Stance is really good and really bad at the same time. It does increase movement range by quite a bit. It's really good because it can let you run away really fast if you're about to be destroyed by your enemy. So this is no movement range, quite a bit shorter, and then March Stance. The thing is, if another enemy is in ambush stance and you go into them, you are going to get destroyed. You are going to have a very tough time. Also, while you are in March Stance, you cannot recruit. For instance, in raiding, in any of the other stances, except for March, I believe. Yes, in any other stance except for March, you can still recruit units. I'm full up right now on this one, so I'm going to switch to my other army.
Raise Sigma.
You can recruit here, but if you go into March stance, you will not be able to recruit units. That is the only stance you're not able to. Now, granted, it is useful. It is useful, especially if you need to, if we need to run back over to our capital, Altdorf, then I would use the stance of March to get there as fast as possible. If an enemy was right outside, then that is a situation I would use my March stance. But in general, it is best to keep your stance at none, because if you get ambushed, it is going to hurt quite a bit, and you may lose your entire army for that. So those are the stances for your legendary lords, or your lords anyway. Alright, we are going to go over now diplomacy. Right here is the diplomacy tab. And what diplomacy is, as the name suggests, it is your relationship with the other surrounding your neighbors and anybody else on the map. Granted, you cannot interact with people you have never met before or have no interest in. For instance, way across the map, you are not going to be able to talk to these guys you have never met before. You do have to meet them first before you are able to communicate with them or trade or anything like that. But what is good, especially for order factions, if you are a demon faction or a beastman or an undead, it's not nearly as good. Some factions, such as the demons, cannot even trade, or the ogres. Actually, I think the ogres can. Might be the orcs that can't trade. Anyway, when you go here, you can press the trade button, and it'll show you
One rug.
the dwarves. See if they would like to trade.
Greetings, honorable ally.
Things like this. For instance, trade agreement. They don't really want to give me a trade agreement right now because we are friendly with them and it isn't proven, but they don't like us that much yet. So if a faction does not like you, they're not going to be willing to trade with you, even if you have a lot of goods and things like that to trade with them. They don't care for that. They care more about their relationship to you. And then you've got and it goes in this order. First, it starts with a trade agreement. That's like the just basic courtesy between factions. It's like, hey, do you want to be friendly? I mean, granted, it does give you additional money each turn, which is nice, but it is the first step in improving relationships with factions. But where we are on the upturning, where we're getting, they like us better and better, I'm not going to. You can do this. You can press trade, and then you can offer money, for instance, to make the trade better, things like that. But if I try and force the trade, then they are going to like me less, and that is going to hurt our relationship with them. Now, our second one,
our honored dwarfkin,
is the military access. And what that is they can send their troops, their armies, into your territory. They are allowed to do that, and you cannot tell them to leave unless you break the military access with them. And they're not going to attack your stuff. I mean, they're not going to, as you're allied at this point. Military access, you're practically friends. You've got, you can send your armies into their territory, which is nice for you if you're trying to expand or want to use them as like a buffer between you and an enemy. Military access is good. And then you've got the defensive alliance. And that is when this is really close together. This is when you guys are like, have incredibly good relations. And that means if another faction declares war on you or them, then you are dragged into that war. It's kind of like the World Wars. You get dragged into it, and then it just piles on. So the more defensive alliances you have, it's kind of good and kind of bad. Because your friends are going to help you if you get attacked, but if they get attacked, especially by a really high strength rank, then you are automatically going to be fighting them as well. And that can hurt you if you don't want to. So I would not recommend getting into a defensive alliance with anyone unless they're an incredibly high strength rank. And you can tell the strength rank by right under our faction, we are 102. The dwarves are 214. That being said, I don't think the strength rank is accurate for the dwarves because they are one of the most busted factions out of every single one. I believe the dwarves or the chaos dwarves are current number 1 in their strength, or at least, the strongest generally considered by the community. And then military alliance. Military alliance are sworn to support each other if attacked or attacking another lord or race. And that means even if you're not attacked by another person, if you yourself decide, hey, I want to fight this person, then they say, hey, I'm going to help you out, and they will automatically join your war against another place, rather than if you are attacked. And then there's also Confederation. Confederation, though, I cannot do with the dwarves. I can only do it with other human factions, and Confederation means, rather than us just being friends or allies, it means that our two factions merge together. If I propose it, the Confederation, then all of their land and their troops and their armies become mine. And that's that is the highest level you can go in terms of diplomacy, is basically like they become yours. Their faction does. That requires an incredibly high amount of friendliness, though. They have to really, really like you at that point, so easier said than done. And then, for instance, you can break every single one of these. I've shown you guys so far you can break that, but that is going to make them very, very angry with you. They may attack you next turn if they are around the same strength rank as you. So, for instance, break trade agreement, you can break any of these, really. And then you can also send payments to them. So if I wanted to make him friendlier, I could say offer payment, and I could pay him. But it would only increase his friendliness by a very small amount, so I don't think it's worth the money at this point. You can also demand payment from other factions, but they really do not like this. I mean, you're basically robbing them, so go figure. But they are very likely to reject it, especially if they're around the same strength rank as you. And that can lead you into an unnecessary war. And in general, I would say it's not worth the gold. So there is the diplomacy. Right? And now we are going to go on to corruption. Now, corruption... Actually, I think I've already talked about corruption in this video. Yeah, I think I have. Right. Oh, I almost forgot. We are going to declare war.
Alchemist!
And what happens when you declare war? Do that. So we're going to go ahead and declare war against...
What does the Emperor bid? Yes, my lord.
We're going to declare war against Heinrich Himmler. Oops.
I command here.
We are going to declare war against him. You press it.
No. Raise your
Agree
weapons.
to declare war against him. Rush here. It's going to show us what we can do. Now, we can fight it manually. I don't really want to because he's got almost full stacks of units, and that is going to be a lot of micromanaging that I do not want to do. And you can do auto-resolve. If you have strong enough troops, which I do, and a lot of them, then the AI basically says, we can't beat this, and it just saves you time, because some of these battles can last upwards to almost 45 minutes to an hour. They take a long time to do. And they are fun most of the time, but sometimes it's not worth it. I don't feel that if it takes over or almost an hour, that it's worth to fight it for that. And once you have destroyed that enemy, or taken over that, you have a couple options. You can occupy it, so that means you take it over and now you own the settlement. You can loot and occupy, which means you will get a little bit of money and you'll still own the settlement. That being said, it is going to hurt the buildings inside. So instead of taking over a nice, good settlement that starts doing things for you, it takes a while to improve. Most of the time I say loot and occupy is not worth it if it's just going to get taken pretty soon after. The sack is when you just loot it and leave. So if I didn't want to stay in this area or make this a foothold, I would just sack it and take more money and leave. Raising the settlement is when, and also raising really makes them mad as well. Now, we are already at war with this faction, so doesn't really matter when we're about to destroy them. But if you're not ready to absolutely have an all-out war with another faction and just want one of their settlements, don't raise it, because if you do raise it, it is going to deteriorate relations to an extreme, and it's generally not worth it. And that destroys all the buildings inside the settlement, so if you do this to their capital, it's very effective, especially in case of the Empire, our own faction. Most of their stuff is in their capital. Their growth buildings, their high-level troop buildings, everything of importance is in their capital, so if you can raise an enemy's capital, it is going to do a lot of benefit to you. Granted, occupying it will do similar, but that's only if you can keep it. So we're going to go ahead and occupy that. There we go.
I am Franz.
And as
They
you
will
guys
obey.
can see right here, there is some vampiric corruption, and that is going to decrease our control by -2. And that is what vampiric corruption does. And I think that is going to be the end of the tutorial, guys. Thank you all for watching.